Well, gentlemen, are we going to stand around here all day? Or are we going to review? So Kingsman: The Golden Circle, that's just come out. This was undoubtedly one of my most anticipated movies of this year. When I saw Kingsman in 2015, it blew my mind. So needless to say, I had high expectations for this film. I tried my hardest to lower them, because I didn't want to get overhyped, but nonetheless I was excited for it. I love Taron Egerton as an actor, I love Matthew Vaughn as a director, I love the first Kingsman movie. It seems like a perfect recipe for a movie-going experience that I would enjoy. In this film, Kingsman headquarters get attacked and they have to go and team up with Statesman to try and stop Julianne Moore from killing a bunch of people. And I have to say, while I did enjoy this film, I was also slightly disappointed by it. The cast is great. Everyone puts in a solid performance. Taron Egerton again does excellent work in this film, as does the rest of the cast. However, there are certain parts of the script that don't quite feel right. There are certain decisions involving certain characters that I didn't really like. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because I want this to be a spoiler-free review, but I did find there were some questionable decisions in the storytelling that sort of disrupted the flow of the film. When you look back at the first film, it flows very neatly from one place to another, and it takes you on this journey, and every scene has something in it that pulls you in and grabs you and keeps you on the edge of the seat. It's part of the reason I love that first film. I can pick out 10 moments from the first film that I could use any one of them as an example for why I love it so much. This film, I can't remember 10 things about it, and maybe it's unfair to compare this new film that I've just seen that's a sequel to the first film, which I absolutely love and have a soft spot for. But here's the thing. The first Kingsman movie, it was in this sort of heightened reality with, you know, cool gadgets and advanced technology, but it was still grounded and felt like it was happening in the real world, and you felt like the stakes at the end, you felt like they were real and there was real danger happening. In this one, it does not feel grounded at all. It's just so heightened that it's bordering on sci-fi. There's robot dogs about and stuff like that. And I'm not against that, but it kind of feels like it just threw them in. It didn't lead up to them. There was no build-up. In the first film, it starts very grounded, and then it builds up to this crescendo of amazing balls-to-the-wall spy action. The second film just throws it all at you. There's no real reason for it to be there, it just is, and the film expects you to accept that. There's also one or two moments that just feel kind of wrong and out of place, and if you've been keeping up with the news, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There's one scene in particular that feels very like, why is this in here? What's this doing? I feel kind of like, I don't need to see this. Could you not have written something different? And there's a sprinkling of these weird moments throughout the film that feel like they, as well as being unnecessary for the plot, pad the runtime. And like I said earlier, they make the flow of the film less fluid. It might sound like I'm being overly negative on this film. I didn't hate this film. I had a fun time watching it. The action scenes, there were a lot of good ones in this, and they incorporated some cool gadgets into them, and I was really on board with it. And it had that Matthew Vaughn slick style to it. Like early on, Eggsy fights a guy in a car, and most of the action you see takes place with this one camera inside the car, and it's really cool, it gets you in there. However, there's not as much variety in the action as there is in the first film, and by the end of the movie you kind of feel like you're just seeing more of the same, and it's not quite as dynamic as it once was. I understand there were some conflicts with certain actors' schedules that meant they couldn't be in the films as much as maybe they should have been or wanted to be, but the way this was cut around in the story didn't feel right. It felt very jarring and obvious as to what was happening. Like, for example, Channing Tatum's character is not in this movie for a long time. He's in there in the beginning, and then he goes away, and then he comes back at the end, and he's missed almost all the movie. Julianne Moore's villain as well, not as memorable or as engaging as Samuel L. Jackson's villain. Julianne Moore's character, her motivation never really seemed too clear, and here's what it is. Kingsman 2 goes from being a slightly heightened spy flick to being cartoonish in places, and it doesn't work. Some of the methods in which henchmen are killed don't feel right. The stakes don't feel as high in this movie as they did in the first movie, because in the first movie, when Harry gets shot, it's an unexpected moment, and Valentine himself says, this isn't that kind of movie. And that lays the groundwork for the emotional climax where you actually feel the danger, like, oh, this film isn't afraid to kill main characters. This film, people are actually in danger. It's not going to be a happy ending completely, it's going to be bittersweet. And if you've seen the trailers for this movie, I'm sure you know Harry comes back. As much as I like the character of Harry, and I like the dynamic between him and Eggsy, and Colin Firth and Taron Egerton work well together, that whole storyline, I feel like it undermines the precedent set by the first film that this isn't that kind of movie. Kingsman: The Golden Circle becomes the exact movie that it doesn't want to be. Kingsman the Golden Circle is good, but it's not as good as Kingsman the Secret Service. In my opinion, there were some things that happened that didn't need to, things that were in there that were like, why? Elton John is in this movie for far too long, and while I did have a good time with this movie, I can't help but feel there are things that could have been better about it, things that should have been different about it. Overall, it was just kind of fine. I know this film has been getting mixed reviews, so I'd say it's worth going to see just so you can make your own opinion on it. And I did have a good time with this movie, just not as good a time as I would have liked to have. So to sum up, while Kingsman the Secret Service was a great film, Kingsman the Golden Circle was a good film. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to like and subscribe, then that's only polite. And after all, manners maketh man. Alright, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Please, Sirens, just gonna wait for that to stop. That's not gonna stop. In the first movie, spoiler alert, Harry gets shot by Duncan Valentine. Not Duncan Valentine, he's from Dragon's Den.